Okay, so welcome to this next video for COMP3218, Game Design and Development at the University of Southampton. My name's Dave Millard, I'm one of the lecturers on the course, and I'm here with...
I'm Tom Blount, I also lecture on the course.
And I'm Max, I'm one of the demonstrators on the course.
Brilliant, so we've got a number of games to go through in this video. Tom, do you want to say what we asked the students to do?
So for this coursework, we were really interested in innovation in game design. So we asked the students to make another small game prototype that this time covered one of three different innovations. Either procedural generation of content, a locative-aware system, or some sort of innovative input method. So motion controls or virtual reality or something like that.
Brilliant. Okay, so we've got three different games to have a look at. So let's have a look at our first game, which is Dark Hollow.
Yeah. It's worth pointing out, sort of presentation-wise, they've got like a special icon for their game as well, which is just a nice little touch.
I have to say, I saw this in the expo, and
that is a good title screen.
It's a beautifully presented game.
That is extremely atmospheric, just from...
It's also done by a single person, so
okay.
I think they've done a really incredible job with the way it looks. You can tell, if you look at our previous videos, you can tell which person it is, or at least see which previous game they've done.
Right,
they definitely have a certain style.
Let's enter the dungeon.
Here we go. Floor 1. Very nice.
So, how do I move, Dave?
Click to move.
Click to move? Oh, no, it's not that.
No. Ah, it's that.
So it's lovely and well presented, but hey...
Can you destroy barrels? You can't put barrels in a isometric dungeon crawler and not let me smash them up.
Yeah, or chests. Can I eat a...
Nothing
So
chests.
there are chests that you can pick up in this game, right?
Okay.
I think
they float.
Spider.
Yeah. Alright, stab. Okay, that's fine.
Nice little sound and also nice little death
There you
animation as
go.
well.
So that chest...
Oh my god, there's loads.
Oh god.
Although it is in fairness glowing.
Sure. But it seems odd to include a non-glowy one, if that's the case.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm nitpicking slightly, but bidding.
Oh, and there's a... What's that there?
There we go. That's...
Oh, look. I like this.
So there's
So you've got
weapon
gold.
potion?
Yeah, you've got gold in the top right hand corner. You've got 2 slashes in the top left hand corner, which I'm not sure what they are.
I think that might be a menu button.
Oh, okay, there you are. It is. You've got
there's a sword over here.
Oh, you've got a health bar at the bottom, and you've sword, shield, and run down the bottom.
So when I picked up that green potion, this lit up and started ticking down, which is a really nice interface. I just don't know what it means. I'm assuming more damage.
Some sort of power up.
Yeah.
It would be good if you could choose when to fire those off.
What's that? That's a sword down there, isn't it?
That's the sword I just dropped. I just picked.
Oh, you picked up this giant sword.
Yeah, this is the agile sword, which is slightly faster. Can I go through doors? So again, really nicely designed thing, but if I can't interact with it, maybe we don't include it. Unless maybe I've got to find a key or something. Ooh, is that a book down there?
Something's going on down there.
It's really difficult
it's a book.
Yeah. So overall, the look of this game is kind of gorgeous. Oh god, that's terrifying.
That's a big spider.
But there's a couple of little problems with... Hey, it's named as well. That's kind of a nice touch.
Annie.
I also don't think it can hit me through there, which is...
Okay.
Too big to fit through the door.
Yeah.
Okay.
Stab. Oh, some variety in enemies. Nice.
So I like the ambition here. They've set out to say, how can we make Diablo?
Let's go back.
I like the different enemies.
That looks like a...
That's a giant.
That's a dragon. So, it ramps up fairly quickly. So I've gone from killing a rat and a bat to now a dragon.
Yeah.
You're big rats.
That is a dragon.
Dragon.
It's not just any old dragon either. It's
typical dragon name.
Yeah, exactly. It's a bit of a wuss.
Yes, there we go. There we go. Oh, there was a chest on the other side of it that I couldn't pick up. Okay, so as soon as you kill the boss, you go to the next level. So I kind of want to explore the whole level, I guess, to get the gold. But I don't think, from what I remember, the gold is just score, really.
Yeah.
There's no shops or anything. Okay.
Stop. Baby dragon.
There we go. Let's click. There's a potion over there.
There's another sword down the bottom there. I don't know what it is. Oh yeah, that seemed to help.
Agile, so I think I've got an
Right,
agile.
okay. Well, it's slightly better than what you've got, I think.
Yeah, so this one's slightly better. So that was a slight criticism that I think we had in the expo, which was it's very difficult to compare stats other than just sort of dropping and picking up like that.
But then is the stat that shown, is that your stat, or is that the stat the one you just picked up, or the stat the one that's
So when you stand over it, it shows the stats for the one on the floor, I think.
So you want to select the worst stat and then you walk off with the best sword.
Well, I mean, sort of. When there is the best stat, then you click to pick it up, and then but that's it. It'd be nice to see them
show the
side by
worst
side.
stat.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So I mean, one of the problems. So there's a lot to admire about the ambition of this, right?
Let's try a quick sword.
So is it better if the speed's lower?
No.
So it's not second.
Good question.
No, it must be like an adjuster or something.
I'm guessing it's just the speed stat, but you're right. It's slightly ambiguous.
So what I was going to say is there's a danger in being ambitious. So we've played some other roguelikes which haven't quite looked like this and haven't had quite so many features in it. And we've been a bit more forgiving when we describe them because they set our expectations at a particular level.
That is true.
And the problem is you play this and you see stats and you see this, and then you start talking about, well, if you're going to have weapon stats and you're going to be picking up gold, then where's the shop? How do I compare the weapon stats? And you suddenly open up a whole new realm of pain.
Of nitpicks.
And nitpicks. So I think that that's one of the reasons you have to be so careful when you're designing a small game. And like you mentioned about the doors, don't put the doors in if you can't open doors, right? It's the gaming equivalent of Chekhov's gun, right?
We've got a blue potion. Yeah, so that's a defense potion.
Gives you defense.
But it's kind of annoying.
The cooldown seems a bit fast as well.
Yeah, particularly as you don't get to choose when you're about to use it. Right, should we crack on with having a look at the marks?
let's have a go through. So let's talk about presentation.
Let's talk about the presentation. Is lovely. It's really nicely put together. Everything's really consistent. Even like the little details, like the title screen and stuff like that, sort of all build together. Like the lighting.
Well, it's even things like the font.
Yeah.
Right. Nice choice of font. I mean, really, really nice.
Like all the little sounds. So when you attack or when you hit something or when you get attacked.
So if you were to think about. Let's go straight to excellent because we know it's very good. So excellent is key information is shown clearly, consistent and appealing graphics, good use of audio, effects, and or music. And I think it does achieve those things. Really nicely done. Prizeworthy would be novel yet clear ways of showing key information, consistent and thematically resonant graphics, excellent use of both audio effects and music. Right. So. There isn't any music, but the audio effects are very good, I think. It is thematically resonant graphics.
You've got
and the audio as well.
Nice little interface with the sort of
and I think I would include that as a novel but clear way of showing key information.
Got a nice variety of ends.
So, I mean, it doesn't quite have the music in there, but I don't think that's a problem because the richness elsewhere. I'd be tempted to give them prizeworthy for presentation.
One thing that was mentioned in the expo is that the further you get on the floors, the darker it gets. So that's kind of what links the sort of...
and it's also thematic too. I think for me it should be at the prizeworthy level. I think the few little niggles we've said stop it being right at the very top, right? But I think it's a beautiful looking game. And I think particularly when you bear in mind it's the work of a single person. Yeah, very, very good. What about the gameplay? So this is the is there a set of complementary mechanics? Are the controls smooth and usable? And is there enjoyable and meaningful play?
So it's certainly fun to play. So some of the roguelikes we've seen, there's never been really an incentive to fight enemies, and I'm just experimenting with running past stuff, and while it's doable, they sort of follow you closely enough that you're
because they follow you from room to room.
Exactly, that's it exactly. So you're definitely incentivized to fight them as you go along. There's a whole bunch of mechanics with the potions, like finding different different weapons with different stats.
Yeah.
So you've got the choice between do I want a weapon that's really, really fast, or do I want a weapon that's slow but does a lot of damage.
And I think one of the things we've said before about what's your goal, why are you doing this? But this one, because you have multiple floors and you are descending, and there's a feeling of progress, and there's a boss at the end of each one, it does feel like there's a reason to play.
I think it's get to a deeper floor than last time.
Yeah.
I thought that it's
Gear
so
up.
satisfying with the exploring.
Or I guess get more gold than you did last time. Which
Yeah.
I think if gold is just tied to score, then your gold is the score rather than the floor.
Yeah.
And
The
maybe-
gold is somewhat of a confusion, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a different way of scoring. So the more you explore the levels, the more gold you get. So the more combat you're drawn into. So it makes a reason. And again, that ties back into it incentivizes the combat. So you have to defeat them to explore to get the gold, rather
But
than
again,
just.
this is about limitations. The problem is, as soon as you bring the gold in, you need a reason to have the gold. And the reason to have the gold is normally so you can buy things. And in these type of things, that's buy health potions, gear up, all that kind of stuff. And that requires you to have a kind of whole system for managing equipment and a shop, and all of a sudden your little game prototype's getting ridiculously big.
Well, so if you treat it as just if you call them score crystals, I've got 731 score crystals. Then I'm exploring the levels to collect those essentially.
Yeah.
So while I could just run past every enemy in the game to sort of get to the boss and get to a deeper floor, if these are the input, so maybe I'm reading too much into it. Maybe it'd be nicer if it was more clearly emphasised.
Or there's some. I'm trying to think if there's some simple way without adding in extra stuff into the game where you could somehow use that gold to get things or to do things.
Yeah.
So, for example, if you could go up and down floors, maybe there could be. Maybe you're collecting things in order to open the doors to open up new levels or something.
So here's actually I'm going to get to the boss. I'm going to let it kill me. I'm going to see what happens.
Yeah, it's not going well.
So it's scored. There you go. So it is it's
so
definitely tied into the score. I'm not sure how we get to.
So it calculates it. Okay.
Is it
okay.
Floors times gold?
There's some equation, isn't there?
Yeah.
All right.
Okay.
So let's talk about this. So we definitely get. I think we've definitely got good. We've definitely got a set of complementary mechanics. We've definitely got usable controls, and we definitely have meaningful play.
So one thing that was mentioned was if you get a really good item at the first level, if you do skip killing monsters, the higher it gets, it will get harder. But the weapons that you get on higher levels will have the stats increase. You do have to search what level you're on, get a good weapon, and then take that boss on.
Okay, so you are basically exploring in order to get the equipment in order to take the boss.
Yeah.
So in terms of gameplay, I think it was definitely good. Excellent would be a wide set of complementary mechanics, intuitive and smooth, usable controls, and enjoyable and meaningful play.
I think we might be there.
I think so. I think that we're probably no higher than that, but I think we are there. You've got the different potions, you've got the cooldown, you've got different weapons going on, you've got different types of enemies, you've got the bosses, there's a lot going on, isn't there?
You've got a variety. So there's a nice variety of enemy sort of models. They don't necessarily act very differently, which is a bit of a shame.
But again, this is about expectation management, right?
Yeah, exactly.
At this scale. So I think it's definitely okay. So I think we all agree it's on the excellent level. I'm just having a quick look at what prize we would be. Complex and complementary mechanics, novel yet intuitive and smooth controls lead to sustained, enjoying, meaningful play. So I'm wondering whether, because I think you do have sustained play. You are playing for a while. I think it is managing that. I don't think it has that novelty, but it does have quite a lot going on. And given that it's a one-player piece, one developer piece, I'm wondering whether we should go halfway between prizeworthy and excellent for gameplay.
Could do.
Just as a help to that. I think they've cracked it. They've cracked something with the gameplay that makes you want to keep going and makes you want to dive deeper and deeper. I'm not entirely sure what the payoff for that's going to be, if there is one, but Bugs.
Haven't really found any. So occasionally I think the spider boss is very easy to kill without taking any damage because it sort of gets stuck in the door. But yeah.
But then it is only a spider.
Yeah.
I did notice that some of the potions did spawn like in those stairs in the corner.
Yeah, there is
Okay.
But that's
So you've got some little minor things, but it's a very there's a lot going on. There's a lot to go wrong. Again, excellent would be there are no bugs despite the complexity of the game. And prizeworthy is there are no bugs despite the significant complexity of the game.
So I don't think it's prizeworthy. It might be excellent.
I think that again we can go with excellent again because it's a single person piece. I think they've done a good job of capturing most of the major problems. All right. Let's talk about the procedural generation. So, Max, you've got the thing there.
Yeah.
So, how do they implement the procedural generation? How does it work?
So it says here that floors are generated procedurally using the current level to specify how difficult they should be. Each floor consists of several rooms and they are generated using the following logic. Place a room adjacent to an existing room. Select all rooms which are adjacent to the new room. Randomly place the door between the new room and the existing room. What they haven't mentioned here, which they did mention in the expo, is that the deeper you get, the levels will also get bigger as well. So the first level was quite small, then you get further and further and they get quite big. Apparently it doesn't run well on the harder floors, so if you get up to level 60, floor 60...
I don't think I'm going to get to 60, it's
yeah,
fine.
and it was...
Right.
So
yeah,
how well do you think the procedural generation is working? I mean, it's certainly generating
so it's certainly generating a playable level.
They're kind of interesting spaces. I think it does suffer a bit from the every room is kind of similar, even though they've got various things scattered around.
That's the thing. The layout of the sort of dungeon itself is functional but not super interesting. The interestingness, I think, comes from the way they generate the weapons.
Yes,
and that's the most sort of varied thing in it. So enemies would be another thing that they could have generated. Sort of, I mean, they obviously do generate different enemies, but that's mostly just a case of they look a bit different. If again, like you say, managing expectations. If they had, if enemies had a different, like each enemy attacked differently, then you could play around with different combinations of stuff in different rooms to give you different challenges. But as it is, I mean, it certainly all works.
I mean, that's kind of what you're missing a bit. So they've got the melee bit there, but they haven't got the kind of the different attacks or weapons working against different foes and those kind of combination stuff. But again, there's so much else going on. Okay, well, let's look at it. So, good would be appropriate procedural generation that incorporates some effective rules designed to enhance or personalise play. Right, so I think that that they've definitely achieved that. Generation works. It creates playable levels, and in fact, it has the rules, which is where it's using the depth in order to change the what's going on.
To change the size of the level, the light of the level,
and the weapon stats.
And the weapon stats. That's all rules designed to enhance play, right? So it's definitely there.
I say it's simple, but without that, it would be
excellent. Would be complex procedural generation that incorporates a number of effective rules designed to enhance or personalise play.
I'm not sure it quite reaches that.
So the difference there is really about the complexity of the procedural generation and the number of rules that they've taken into account.
So, as far as I can tell, it's a case of, you know, the deeper you go in, the more rooms, the higher the weapon stats, the harder the enemy.
And the darker it gets.
Yeah.
Well, there's several things going on at once, all of which kind of combine. They're all kind of... Yeah.
I get this motion.
And they do work with the design, and it makes sense that happens. I'd be tempted to go maybe halfway between the two.
Yeah,
it's kind of it's getting on to the complexity of excellent, but not quite there. Okay, so that was for the brief. Meaningfulness. What do they say, Max, about what
why
they thought?
chose,
you know, why procedural generation? What does that bring to the party?
So each score is generated procedurally so that no two playthroughs are the same. This allows for content to always feel fresh, so that players do not get bored so easily, as they'll never be certain what's to come.
Yeah.
It's a bit vague.
That is, yeah. So again, it's the old the replayability chestnut.
So now the question is, does the design make replayability a valid thing?
And I think it does, but not necessarily for the reasons they've said.
Okay.
So the layout of the dungeon itself does not really affect the replayability. It's just so the fact that there are different weapons, the fact that there are some that are like strong but slow, and some that are weak but fast, is sort of the thing that makes it interesting. I find.
Yeah.
And obviously, that could be expanded even more, but what's there is like pretty reasonable. I think it adds something. It's not necessarily a huge amount to this.
Yeah.
So again, roguelikes. So for example, like Rogue, the reason it's replayable is not just because it's procedural, but because it's got so much variety in the ways in which you can play.
Yes. Yeah.
So whether you decide,
there's a little bit of that going on here, isn't there?
yeah. So whether you use like melee or bows or magic or whatever. Whereas this, you've got the two sort of different styles of weapon.
Yeah. But again, it feels like it just feels like it's going in the right direction, but not quite there. Doesn't it?
That's it. So let's have a look at the marks. What would satisfactory be, for example?
So satisfactory would be a straightforward design that in a small way takes advantage of the innovation, and where the innovation is in some part adding to the gameplay, and where some limitations are avoided. Whereas good would be an effective design that takes effective advantage of the innovation, where the innovation adds to the gameplay and the limitations are minimised. It probably is just about getting to good, I would say.
It may be sort of halfway between the two.
Yeah.
But
It's not really doing much more with it, is it? That's the thing. But it's
certainly not hindering it. I think, like I say, because of the slight variety between the weapons, it does help it a little bit. I feel like maybe they could have done more with like the potions, for example.
Yes.
Yeah, things like the fact that they're consumed immediately is a bit of a shame. If they were sort of maybe slightly sparser and you got to choose when to consume them, then that's another thing that will sort of change the way in which you play the game.
Yes, it's got that problem again. It's got the brand problem, basically. Lots of things going on, it all averages out, and the experience is basically the same every time.
Yeah.
So, okay, if we said halfway between satisfactory and good?
That seems reasonable.
Feedback. So what feedback do they get, Max? What do we tell them?
So, for feedback, it's not obvious what chests do or that you can pick them up.
Yeah.
So they've added an indication of gold collected at the top right hand corner of the screen. Yeah, so I think if that gold wasn't there, it would be like...
No, that'd be strange.
If I remember rightly, they didn't get this feedback from us because they missed that lab. But they did do some extra playtesting and got feedback from elsewhere.
Yeah. The game doesn't run well so well at the harder floors, which is it's a prototype, so which is fair. Floor 60 is pretty kind of. And weapons aren't that obvious. They added particle effects to weapons, so they are more obvious. So I guess before you couldn't see that they were on the floor.
So
that's definitely helped.
Yeah, and you wouldn't be able to tell what you could pick up and things like that.
But this isn't necessarily the design related feedback.
These are all minor usability things, really.
Yeah, and there's no way to exit the dungeon early, which they've added the menu.
Okay, so satisfactory would be feedback was articulated, some changes were attempted with partial success. And pass would be feedback was not well articulated, but some changes have been made with limited success. Well, they've articulated some feedback and they've acted on it, but it's fairly minor stuff.
Yeah. And
they're not really engaged with any of the deep questions about what they're doing.
Yeah, the design decisions sort of involved in why they've chosen procedural and things like that.
So, I would say in that case, it's difficult. They probably are somewhere around a past the satisfactory. I would say.
Perhaps slightly higher than pass.
So we could go halfway between the two again, and say, look, the you've articulated the feedback and you have made the changes with some success, but they're very limited changes really, and they're not design changes. So that's halfway between the two.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, that's it. Let's move on to the next game. But what a lovely looking game. So our next game is called the Labyrinth.
Again, little custom icon. Nice.
And they've named the XC, which always helps. Right. So again, this is also by a single person, so we ought to bear that in mind.
Okay.
Music.
Very
Yes.
nice. Resume.
Let's see what the controls are.
Or interact. Use string. Q.
Use string.
Well,
Oh, because it's a labyrinth.
Ah.
Attack, block, focus.
Left and right.
Alright, cool. Well, I'm sure we'll work it out.
Again, it just shows you how it's not ideal when you're trying to absorb lots of things all at once.
Okay, this is...
Oh, that's okay. It incorporates them in.
I don't remember seeing this in any of the labs.
No, I don't remember this either. So let's go.
Let's go over here. Talk to Daedalus.
Daedalus.
Theseus.
I'm looking for you. There's something I was hoping you'd help me with. Okay, they've gone for a whole dialogue thing. Ariadne's father, King Minos, made designs somewhere to contain a beast that any normal cell couldn't contain. So we did a labyrinth.
Which is interesting, because there's only one path through a labyrinth.
Yes.
That's what makes it different to a maze. Slightly pedantic.
It's true though.
Minos was concerned that in the time it would take to build a labyrinth, many would fall to the beast, pray to the gods, construction of...
Because he laid a curse on the labyrinth.
Huh.
Okay.
Of all the people to curse the labyrinth, I don't know why Poseidon would curse it, but okay. Juno's constantly shifting, halls are full of monsters. Okay.
Okay. It's not a labyrinth then, is it? Okay.
We've got a shop. Look at that.
Yes.
There's
a whole bunch of stuff going on here.
It's certainly setting up my expectations here.
Yeah.
We're not.
Let's see what happens.
Talk to Ariadne.
Ariadne.
Glad you're here. Labyrinth was designed to make it easier. You will see it.
Hold Q and you'll be able to see it.
That's our string.
Okay.
Cool. And we can attack. We can block.
And run like hell.
Open door to labyrinth. Okay.
Oh.
You found the exit.
Okay, the camera in this is not great. Because it also doesn't face... Oh, okay. Okay, nope, had enough of that.
So what does the camera do? It just sits behind you.
So if I face this way and attack, I attack towards the camera, it doesn't face the mouse.
Oh, right. So how do you change the camera? Oh, you have to turn.
I have to actually, turn and then do this.
Ouch. Yeah.
This is... I'm clipping into the walls and everything. This is...
Unfortunate. Okay.
It almost seems it's like it's using autographic instead of perspective projection.
Yeah, there's something odd about it, isn't it? Okay, this is... Okay, the controls have gone from being slightly annoying to actually a bit unusable now. So I've got to get to the lab, right? That's what I'm doing.
Yeah.
There's a chest.
There's a chest.
Chest. Health potion.
Health potion. Oh, okay, so nice. Right, I like that.
That clipping's game.
Seems to be an awful lot of these.
The fact that you don't turn with the mouse is like it makes the combat virtually impossible.
So what is the the mouse is controlling the
just the camera, but not
just the camera,
but not the facing of the player.
Right. Okay. It's a very
so
strange way of doing it.
So I can basically only move in like 90-degree turns.
Yeah.
Ooh, another chest. I'll just ignore these people hacking at my shins.
Can you take a health potion?
I can even store one if I want to.
Yeah, but can you?
I don't know how I use it.
How do you use the health potion? It probably told us in that screen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So.
Oh my goodness me.
So I'm trying to navigate my way through the maze, but just the way the camera is moving.
Also, you were right. The perspective of the camera is weird. It looks to me like it is something to do with the field of view of the camera. Or something,
yeah.
It's very. It's like we're super zoomed in.
Yeah.
It feels like we're looking at the centre of a much bigger picture.
That could be a resolution.
I was going to say,
I'm wondering if it is.
let's try
Missions?
So we can use that version.
Missions. Okay.
It's quite an advanced sort of menu system.
It is.
Active quests. My gosh, we've got lots of stuff going on here.
It's a labyrinth. Retrieve an item from Daedalus' lab.
Okay.
So the framework of what they've got a lot of stuff going
They've got
on.
a lot of stuff going on.
Right, let's. I'm gonna quit this and then
Should we try
the resolution.
Try a different resolution.
Do you want to go higher or lower?
Well, I don't know. It looked like it was. What do we have? We had standard
Sort of
widescreen
1920, yeah.
before, didn't we? 1080.
Show you 800 by 600.
Yeah, go on, give that a go. Let's see if that just shoves everything back a bit.
Can I resume? I can't resume. No,
Perhaps you had to save.
Does that look better?
Not really.
Not really. Do I have to speak to him to get the quest? What happens if I don't? Ooh, no, that's worse.
Yeah, I think they're the same.
Got missions, and no, it's slightly worse because this is off screen, and I don't have the quest because I didn't talk to the first.
Let's
one.
restart in 1080.
Yeah, okay.
And while you play through, and let's see if we can do one mission. We'll go through. Yeah. So there's an awful lot going on in this game. So again, it feels like they've bitten off more than they should have done.
I said there's an awful lot set up. I'm not sure there's necessarily
Yes.
a huge amount actually going on.
Oh, we're going up.
Yeah, I'll just see what happens. Okay. So I have to speak to this guy,
Yeah.
or we don't get the quest.
But it did let you go back into this area before.
Yes.
Yeah, but
But there's nothing to tell you that you need to get the quest.
No.
So again, we're kind of we're not marking against this, but when we talked in our last set of videos about managing agency, this is one of the points. How do you stop people just wandering off into the labyrinth for no reason?
also, if the labyrinth is constantly shifting, how does holding Q help me? Oh god, that's
Have you held Q? What does it do?
I'm holding it now. So if I turn around and look behind me, there you go. There's
so it shows
you
you the route you've come. Okay.
Oh, that's pretty neat.
It is like it's nicely done. I just wish I could see it
I
better.
reckon they've got something set up wrong.
I mean,
Because it does look really zoomed in.
I don't know. It's it's that over the shoulder kind of God of War projection, isn't it?
God of War's. Well, the first one's really zoomed out. They changed it for the most recent one.
No, I meant the most recent one.
Dad of Boy.
Yeah. Okay, let's go through it. Let's talk about some of the things going on because there's a lot happening in this game. What do we think about the presentation?
Information design
Yeah.
is not bad. So we've got all the people. We've got all their health bars. We've got our health bar in the
Our
top.
health nice and clear.
We've got the mission tree as a reminder.
Yeah, we've got the inventory is nice and clear and
Like equally,
easy.
like there's like dialogue trees with like different things. Like that's actually nice. It's slightly let down by the camera, obviously,
I
and
think slightly let down is an understatement, right?
yeah, okay.
So the camera is a real problem. But we can overlook that when we're looking and thinking about those other things.
But
the rest of the graphics, they're kind of
they're consistent
and they kind of work. The animations are all in there.
Yeah.
The animations give you warning of when someone's about to attack you.
The maze
so they
is
actually have
slightly
an informational purpose.
the maze is slightly featureless, and
It is.
that's probably by design. But equally, it does make finding where you've gone. But I also should have mentioned that that's actually really nicely put together. I imagine there's quite a lot of
There's a lot of stuff going on behind the scenes, isn't there, to make that work?
because it's not just have you been in this segment of the map. It's mapping my exact position,
Yeah.
which might be a bit overkill, really. But
And
it's a
also,
nice
I
touch.
imagine if you're not careful, it's just going to become a confusing mess.
Yeah.
But so if I could control it better, I think I'd be able to manage that slightly better. Because it is the idea is you've got a bundle of string and you're releasing it behind you.
Yeah.
So it makes sense that it becomes a tangled mess if you don't take care of it.
So, okay, where are we? If we were to go for good, the presentation, we have key information shown clearly, graphics are consistent, and appropriate use of audio. I think that
The audio is quite nice, actually.
the audio is working, it's all thematic, the graphics are consistent and they're thematic.
I would be willing to be relatively generous, sort of, and overlook the camera on this part because I think it's going to come back in when we talk about gameplay and controls.
I think so. So I think we should just, I'm happy to do that. I think it's at least good.
Oh, do they drop chests?
The excellent is consistent and appealing graphics and good use of audio.
Oh, you can get some sort.
Ooh.
And it's on its way there,
Honestly,
right?
yeah.
And you've got icons and things here. You've got kind of there's a lot going on.
I was going to say halfway between the two, but
Yeah, I was as well. I'm wondering whether we should just go for excellent and say, look, they've done a nice job. It all fits together. It looks nice. There's an awful lot happening. The information design is really quite good.
Yeah.
Let's go with excellent. Okay, gameplay.
So here's the thing. Again, they've got, in terms of like mechanics, there's certainly a lot of mechanic. Well,
Yep.
there's the gameplay itself is run around, hit people with a sword, try and find a thing in a maze.
You've got the string. You've got the inventory. You've got the kind of the quest system.
Exactly. And how do I?
You've got a whole.
Oh, I only picked up the one band bracelet.
And you've got a whole stats thing, and I mean this is quite.
Like, there's a lot going on. We've got attack, defense, gold.
Yeah. What were they thinking, trying to do this much in a prototype game?
And all the narrative and dialogue stuff as well.
I mean, absolutely colossal in that stuff.
So
I think in terms of a wide set of complex and complementary mechanics,
absolutely,
that's the prize-worthy level. They do get there. Although, in some ways, I want to discourage that because I think that's what's caused them the problems. But they have got it.
I think what really lets them down is the controls.
The control is a real problem.
So not just the camera, but the fact that I can't. If I turn around to attack someone, I keep attacking in the same direction, and I can only really sort of just move in like 90-degree increments. So hitting somebody that's sort of at 45 degrees to me is.
That's a real.
I've got to sort of every time I look, then got to tap gently.
Well, you turn to face the direction the mouse is in, right? So if you want to turn at an angle, you turn the mouse in a different direction, then push in that direction.
Yeah, exactly. But then I've got to tap just gently enough that I don't.
It's very odd not to. I mean, there's a reason that
why most games
have strafe, right, and not turn. So that is a really odd choice. I think it's also an odd choice because most people, when they design games, they've learnt this design language through playing.
So interesting.
So it's very odd that this is what they've picked when they must have played hundreds of games. Probably.
I vaguely remember previous games either this year or in previous years that have a similar problem. So for example, if I hold down forward and then turn to look, then it works. I don't know if this is the default Unity character controller or an asset pack that they use.
Okay, you think that's something like that?
Yeah. But in which case, play test it, and if it doesn't work, use a different one.
So if we put aside the complexity for a minute, because I think that is very, very good.
Ooh, got shield.
Good would be smooth usable controls and meaningful play. So I would say that satisfactory would be usable controls and some meaningful play, and it feels more like that, right? However, the mechanics are right at the other end of the scale. So I think that the most of the gameplay is at the satisfactory level, but there is a wide set of complex and complementary mechanics, and that's at the prize-worthy level.
So do we bump them up to good?
So I think we should. I think it should be at least good.
Because here's the thing: while they do have a wide set of complementary mechanics, like you say, it's not that we want to discourage them from doing that, but it feels like they've added all of those things at the expense of actually playing the game.
That's right, and making a smaller set work. Okay, what about bugs? Would you count the camera's got to be bugged? Right?
The fact that it clips through walls.
Clipping in the walls is a problem. But there's an awful lot going on for not very many other bugs, as far as I can tell.
The problem is, it's to an extent the controls are so unusable. We've had a little bit of difficulty exploring the rest of everything else. Also, I know we've said this before when we've seen games that are just mazes, but it is sort of just a maze.
Yes, it is. Although
there we go.
Yeah.
Look at that. There's your tangled mess right there.
But it's a maze where you are fighting things.
Yeah, that's it. So there's definitely other gameplay
stuff going on. So bugs. There are no bugs despite the complexity of the game would be excellent. I think the camera clipping is going to stop them getting that. But there are only minor bugs, and these are uncommon. Satisfactory, there are infrequent serious bugs or frequent minor bugs. I think it depends what you think of the camera clipping, how serious you think it is.
It's really hindering gameplay, to be honest.
Maybe we compromise on like satisfactory. So I think actually what we have here is the game is playable, but there are frequent serious bugs.
Yeah, I think that's probably where it
That's
sits.
the pass level, but pass also includes a simple game.
True.
So I think for that reason we bump it up.
That's
to
the
be
thing.
Satisfactory.
Certainly, like the inventory management and stuff seems to work okay.
Yeah.
It's slightly difficult to tell. Well, I was going to say it's slightly difficult to tell what mechanical impact it's having. But for example, when I pick up the shield, I'm now holding the shield and stuff. So they've made sure all of that works.
Okay, let's talk about the procedural generation. So Max, what are they?
So the generated section of the game is the Labyrinth. The player has to enter to complete the quests. The maze is generated using Prim's algorithm. It creates a grid of squares, each of which have 4 walls assigned to it, and share walls with neighbouring squares. The squares are all added to a list of squares not yet in the maze. A random square is taken and moved from the list of squares not in the maze to the list in the maze. The following process is repeated until the list of squares not in the maze is empty. So they choose a random square which is in the maze. Choose a random neighbour to this square. Is the neighbour not in the maze? Remove the wall between the 2 squares and add the square to the maze list. And repeat. They say a start and end point of the maze is selected by choosing 2 random points on the edge of the maze and replacing the exterior wall with a door. At the start of the maze has the player placed in.
So it's a conventional sort of maze generation algorithm.
So
Have they mentioned doing anything about sort of like? Have they mentioned pacing at all? Sort of like how it scales as they go through the game? Or?
No, the only other thing that's mentioned is the placing of the chests and enemies.
So are they?
So they
random, or what are
they don't place the chests don't spawn where the enemies are, and they won't spawn at the start or end points.
So it actually feels like it's relatively straightforward procedural generation, with some rules that enable meaningful play, which is satisfactory. Kind of builds a maze. The maze is playable. Enemies and chests are set apart. There are. It's a playable space.
And that's the thing. So I guess the other thing that they're generating is the content of the chests. So
yes, that's true.
So I was going to say like that doesn't seem to sort of take into account what I'm already carrying or things like that.
Yeah.
I'm guessing that scales based on. So if I'm assuming, like this is mission 1, so I'm getting level 1 stuff. Maybe on mission 2 I get level 2 stuff.
But who knows?
I mean, have they said anything about that in there? Because otherwise, there's not really a lot that we can see happening beyond it generates a maze.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's fine. It's satisfactory. It works.
Yeah.
So they say the randomly generated quests to create infinite levels.
No, that's interesting.
Randomly generated quests.
I'm not sure how that works.
Yeah, is it?
They don't describe the random. They mention it.
Well, I'm on a quest right now. I can't find the lab at the centre.
Or was that the same quest as last time?
I think so, yeah. But I'm guessing what they mean is... Again, I'm making an assumption here, but I'm assuming that it's a case of every time you go back, they say, now go to a different point in the maze and find a thing.
Okay. I mean, I still think it's satisfactory.
I think I agree.
Okay, what about meaningfulness? What do they say about what it brings to the game?
The person said, I feel that having the levels of this game procedurally generated enhance the gameplay as it allows the same maze to be replayed multiple times without the player just doing the exact same path.
Do they mean replayability?
I think they do.
They do, yeah.
Okay, so again, same question. Is it fun to replay it?
Getting lost in a maze fun and engaging?
I would say that again, there's no element of exploration, and again, there's no the mechanics are not engaging enough that what you want to do is I just want to go and do this thing again and kill some enemies. And there's no kind of element about there's no learning the maze, as it were, is not I mean, you could argue it's part of the thing, but the maze is so featureless. And
So here's the thing: if this was an authored maze, so if somebody had designed a maze, would we be able to tell the difference at all?
Well, I think you probably would, because it would be a lot better.
Okay.
So I think that I can understand why they've done it, and again, it's that get out of jail free card. Yes, it is different, but again, it's different. But the experience isn't radically different, and it's not incorporated into the design. So Satisfactory is a straightforward design that in some small way takes advantage of the innovation, and the innovation is in some part adds to the gameplay and where some limitations are avoided. And it feels like that to me. It's on a satisfactory level. What about feedback? What did they say?
So the feedback they got was the feedback again was to give the player more motive to play, such as making the game more race to the end, with scores such that the player would be more motivated to play again to beat the previous scores.
Okay, which then would then make the replayability the point, right?
Yeah. They said they considered this, but could not feasibly implement it into the game in the remaining time,
because they'd already written an entire RPG.
Yep, it would alter many aspects of the game.
Yeah.
They did, however, introduce the random missions for the players to take, giving the player more reason to return to the Labyrinth to play.
Yeah. I mean, again, I admire the ambition, but given the time they had and the focus they what we wanted, I think what happened is they've just bitten off so much. It's a miracle they've got this thing together, frankly.
Yeah.
So what they've basically said for feedback, I think, is that they had some feedback and they didn't do anything with it.
That sounds like it.
Yeah.
Is that right?
Well, they added in the random quests, which is an interesting concept, but I don't think we'll be able to see it.
To give a different perspective. Okay. So the feedback was certainly articulated.
Sorry, just going back to the whole random quest thing. Like, I'm struggling to complete the first one because I really have no idea where I am in this labyrinth right now.
What about the string?
Well, I'm constantly holding Q. It's a big labyrinth. So it mentioned in the sort of flavour text that it's constantly shifting, in which case the string is useless. And
but I think they mean every time you go in.
Yeah, I'm also not sure how long the string is, because I've suddenly opened this new area and it's all empty.
Yeah.
So either this is an incredibly large maze, or the string has a fixed length.
Yeah.
Or there's not a lot of guidance towards where
somewhere in the maze is a ragged end of string being dragged forlornly around corners.
That would be a very different ending to that.
Hundreds of yards
that
behind. Okay, so for me, I think they've articulated the feedback, that which is satisfactory. But actually, in terms of changes, I would say it's not that changes have been attempted with partial success. I think they've made some changes with limited success. They've not done an awful amount. So it's sort of halfway between the two. So for me, it's halfway between satisfactory.
I'm surprised no one mentioned the camera issue.
So I don't remember seeing this, so I think it may still have been at a sort of conceptual level when we were talking to them about it.
Yeah. Okay. So feedback then, we'll put it between the two on the grounds that they've articulated the feedback, but they really didn't do very much with it. So, okay, I think we should move on to our next game.
Okay.
So the next game is Hexagon.
Yes.
Or Super Hexagon Ripoff.exe.
Okay,
so it's fair to say they've been inspired by something.
So, I'm the space to restart.
Okay, okay, so this is just basically Super Hexagon, right?
Well, it gets hard very quickly.
There's no sound to this either.
Interesting.
Okay. Okay. Maybe I'm just bad at Super Hexagon.
Yeah, it's not really a game I've played much.
There are some. Okay, so I think we've seen probably all of the gameplay in that sort of short amount of time. So let's just jump right into it and have a look at the marketing. I think that's interesting. It looked like I was clipping through some of them there, whereas sometimes it felt like I died without.
Yeah. Do you want to take over and you jump?
Yeah. Do you want? Yeah. I'll let somebody who can actually play games.
Well, don't speak too soon.
All right. So in terms of presentation,
I think it looks quite nice.
Yeah, like it's all put together nicely. So this is sort of goes back to what we said with some of the previous games. Like they're sort of very simple, very abstract graphics.
Yeah.
But they've really embraced them. Everything is that sort of nice, sort of blocky, simple style. It is very clear, sort of, where the barriers are, where like your character is, things like that. It's sort of let down by the lack of music.
Yes, just some techno music would have been good.
Yeah. It just really needs some audio just to sort of like really lift the aesthetic up a bit. I think there's no like death sound or background music or anything, which is a little bit of a shame. Okay, so if we had a look at the mark scheme, a satisfactory would be key information is shown, consistent graphics, some audio. And in terms of like the overall aesthetic, yeah, it's nice.
Yeah, I agree.
Key information, so you've got, the gaps are clear. There's your score over there in the sort of top right. That's tucked away a little bit, but I guess it's not.
It's not that important, really.
Yeah, it's not. It's only sort of, I guess, when you get to the sort of game over screen.
Yeah.
That we're seeing frequently that it's relevant, so it's not sort of distracting from that. But there's no audio. So is the sort of overall information design enough that we can sort of forgive them for that lack of audio? And I think part of the problem is there's not a lot of information to necessarily convey in this game.
No, there's not. There's really nothing really important. You don't want to be too distracted from it, I think.
Actually, the way the camera moves and sort of like the way it sort of shifts rotation and stuff is a nice touch as well.
It is a really nice touch.
So if we couldn't overlook the audio, that would put it at some attempt at information design, consistent but poorly chosen graphics and poorly chosen audio. And I think overall the information design makes it better than that. So the graphics certainly aren't poorly chosen; they're very nicely chosen. Even if it is very reminiscent of an existing sort of game and design aesthetic.
Yeah.
So perhaps if we put it halfway between the two.
Yeah, that sounds good. Let's
see. So put that there for now. Gameplay. So things like mechanics, controls.
The controls are pretty okay. Difficulty curve is just, I think, stops you from exploring. Like, you probably didn't get a chance to explore how well the controls.
But yeah. So mechanics, we've got sort of what's the word? Constricting zones with a gap, and you have to loop around. But that's kind of it. There's not a huge amount going on.
Yeah.
Let's have a look at. The pass level for gameplay would be few or inconsistent mechanics, challenging controls, limited meaningful play.
There is some meaningful play.
Yeah, there's sort of like reaction, sort of like skill-based challenge. Sort of,
Yeah.
Similar to sort of like a lot of casual sort of rhythm-based games. I think that's partly why we feel like the lack of audio is such a detriment to this particular game.
Yeah.
Because you really need something to sort of emphasize like each of these beats. I think the problem is just sort of there's a lack of mechanics really.
Yes, there is.
Like the controls are pretty smooth and easy to use. It's just, and we might touch on this in the sort of procedural part. The levels seem to generate sometimes a bit unfairly. Yeah,
I think going all the way round, you can't do it. So if the entrance to the next bit is right behind you, you can't. Yeah, so, you might be able to. I haven't managed to yet.
So we'll come back to that in a minute. Pass would be fewer inconsistent mechanics, challenging controls, and limited meaningful play. And the thing is, so what we said is the controls are fine. The play is okay apart from the problem with the levels. You made that one. The problem is there's just really not enough going on here.
Yeah.
So I think, is it worth putting it between pass and satisfactory, or do we leave it on pass?
I think in the middle, because with a few adjustments, it'd go a long way. I think.
Okay. Alright, So we'll put it between pass and satisfactory for that. I think bugs is sort of where we're going to sort of talk about the complexity a little bit more. So as far as I can tell, there are no bugs.
No.
But it's a very simple game. There's not a lot to go wrong.
I think you mentioned you went through the walls a little bit of the time.
Oh yeah, there was. Yeah.
But it wasn't clear if you were allowed to, or...
Yeah. So maybe a small sort of like visual glitch in sort of like exactly
the collision boundary.
So again, if we look at a pass, it would be a simple game, playable but with frequent serious bugs. And lower than that would be a very simple game runs, but serious bugs make it unplayable.
It's a very simple game, but I wouldn't say there's bugs really.
Yeah. So it's very simple though. There's so I think probably a pass. Let's just have a look. Yeah, perhaps. Honestly, I think maybe sort of between pass, like just slightly lower than a pass. I think for this.
Yeah. Let's go with that.
So the procedural generation. So normally at this point we'd have a look at their game notes and sort of talk about how they're procedurally generating this. But unfortunately they've not handed that in. So they've talked about sort of what the game involves, but they haven't mentioned anything about how they procedurally generated it, and they haven't mentioned why they've chosen to include that. So we're going to have to base it purely off of what we're seeing at a surface level.
Yeah.
And from what I can tell, it's more or less totally random.
Totally random, and it doesn't seem like it gets more difficult over time.
I think they always seem to be generated the same distance apart, with just a gap at a random place.
Yeah, and the same frequency between coming.
So a pass for this would be simple procedural generation that in the majority of cases allows play. And poor would be overly simple procedural generation that in many cases impedes or harms play.
So I'd say there is some, like, getting around there when it gets too fast can be quite tricky.
So it doesn't feel like there's any, what's the word, checking that something is playable. So it's never a case of the fact that you can have to go all the way around, like right there. And so that's 3 in a row of like sort of very, very hard. So it obviously doesn't scale as you go on either.
Yeah.
So it's certainly playable.
Yep.
But I would almost be inclined to put it halfway between a poor and a pass, just because it's so simple. We can't see any particular validation. We can't see any particular scaling.
No, some scaling would have been really nice.
Because of that, it might even. No, they have some procedural generation, and it does technically lead to a playable game. It's just slightly unfair in places, so I'll put it as a poor and a pass. But the meaningfulness. So, as with every sort of question for this, so again, they've given no justification for why they've decided to include it.
Mm-hmm.
If I had to guess, I'd say probably replayability. But as with all of these, like, firstly, would you want to replay this game, and would having an authored level be better?
I don't think an authored level would be better just because of the type of game it is.
So it's interesting you say. I think it could be. So if you look at something like sort of other sort of like slightly simple rhythm-based games, like, so I've not played Super Hexagon, so I can't compare it directly to that. But if you look at something like Audio Surf or even something like Guitar Hero,
I was thinking Audio Surf would be a good,
because they do have fixed patterns, and the idea is you sort of play the level and you improve at it and you get better.
Yeah.
Whereas this, you have no way to improve in practice. And because there's not really got that validation in the...
Yeah, I can imagine, if this was based on some sort of song and the beats, and it would be a better...
So I'd say if it was a case of... if it was a case of you could upload your own song to this, and then the procedural generation like built the level based on
the beats and things.
The rules of that, then suddenly that's totally the other end of the spectrum. There's a really clear reason for it to be procedural.
Yeah, 100%.
But for this, honestly, I almost think the fact that it's not validated in this way sort of really impedes the play. So if we look, for example, past would be simplistic design or one that does not take advantage of the innovation. The innovation does not detract from the experience, and limitations, although present, do not prevent meaningful play. And I almost think, again, it could be just below that. So a poor would be inappropriate design. The innovation is in conflict with the gameplay, and limitations are a significant problem for meaningful play. And I think this might be that. I think it might just be a poor implementation or a poor design choice for this particular style.
Yeah, I think if it went all the way, it would have been better. Or if it was like the Impossible game where there's a set level, it would have been better as well. So I think it's just not there either way.
Yeah, which is a shame, really. So I think we have to give that a thought. And the last item on I'm asking is feedback, and unfortunately they've just not included any feedback they were given or any actions they've taken. So.
Yeah, and I don't remember seeing this game at all during the expos. So.
Yeah, so that's a little bit of a shame. But there we go. So overall, it's clearly a nice concept, and there's definitely things they could sort of build on this and sort of, like we were saying, sort of incorporate some sort of beat or a rhythm and just a little bit of validation on the procedural generation and like scaling and things like that. So it's a good sort of foundation for that. It's just a shame they didn't take it a little bit further.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, so I think that's our last game for this batch.
I think it is as well.
So we will see you for the next video. Thanks for watching.